He opens my dark eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, earth after earth. From him is that heaven lands, and in him is the strength. The very scriptures sing of his character.
Our spiritual master is the ocean master, defended by the Lord, and the Lord of the master of his works. O Master, be merciful to us, and give us the shade of his mercy. May your fame be spread over the three worlds, and we take shelter of your wings. Svayam Bhagavan Keshava.
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Tai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Yeah, just over there. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. I just saw the purport this morning on the Bhagavatam, and it was talking about something very, very specific. So then I thought maybe it's Krishna's arrangement that, thank you so much, that then what we do is I just expand on this point that's talked about in the Bhagavatam. I don't know how long it's going to take, so it may span today and tomorrow. Let's see how far we go. So is that okay? So it's a PowerPoint. It's usually not a PowerPoint in the morning, but what to do? Is the Bhagavatam here? Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh, the book's there. Okay, good. Okay, so today we're reading, I think the verse is here. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, text chapter number 27, entitled Attacked by Chandavega on the City of Puranjana. And today we're reading from text number 25. Dvavimam anusochanti balavasad avagraho yalloka shastro panatam narati natadichati dvavimavanusocanti balavasad-avagraho yalloka shastro panatam narati natadichati dvamivavanusocanti balavasad-avagraho yalloka shastro panatam narati natadichati. Vamivavanusocanti balavasad-avagraho
yalloka shastro panatam narati natadichati.
Dvamivavanusocanti balavasad-avagraho yalloka shastro panatam narati natadichati. Vamivavanusocanti balavasad-avagraho yalloka shastro panatam narati natadichati. Dvav, two kinds. Imo, these. Anusochanti, they lament. Balo, ignorant. Asat, the foolish. avagraho, taking the path of, yat, that which, loka, by custom, shastra, by scriptures, upanatam, presented, na, never, rati, follows, na, neither, tat, that, ichchati, desires. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. One who does not give charity according to the customs or injunctions of the scriptures, and one who does not accept charity in that way, are considered to be in the mode of ignorance. Such persons follow the path of the foolish. Surely they must lament at the end. Purport. It is herein stated that one should strictly follow the scriptures if one actually wants an auspicious life. The same is explained in Bhagavad Gita 16:23. Ya sastra vidimutsrijya vartate kamakarata nasa siddhim avapnoti nasukham na param gatim. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. One who does not strictly follow the terms of the Vedic injunctions never attains success in life or happiness, and what to speak of going home back to Godhead. One Shastric injunction holds that a householder, a Kshatriya or an administrative head should not refuse to accept a woman if she voluntarily requests to become a wife. Since Kalakanya, the daughter of time, was deputed by Narad Muni to offer herself to Yavana Raj, the king of the Yavanas could not refuse her. All transactions must be performed in light of the Shastric injunctions. The Shastric injunctions are confirmed by great sages like Narada Muni. As stated by Narottam Das Thakur, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya. One should follow the principles of saintly persons, scriptures, and the spiritual master. In this way, one is sure to attain success in life. Kalakanya, the daughter of time, presented herself before the king of the Yavanas precisely in terms of Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. There was no reason for not accepting her. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Jnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada is making a very powerful point. He's reiterating Krishna's words in the Bhagavad Gita, who says that anyone who lives their life but doesn't follow the advice and the instructions of the scriptures, the saintly people and the spiritual teachers, they will not attain happiness, they will not attain the supreme destination, they will not attain success in their life. So this is a very, very powerful point, and this is basically the quotation that Srila Prabhupada gives. Sadhu Sastra Guru Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya. That in our hearts we must always keep the guidance of these three sources very, very clear, because at every moment we have to make decisions. At every moment in our life we have to take a call. At every moment we have to try to decode the world and decode like how I should react to situations. And the only way you will be able to constantly and sustainably do that in a progressive way is if we have these three things very, very strong in our consciousness. So the first thing is we need the saintly people around us. We need a community of other spiritual people who can help us to make our journey in this world. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says the famous verse, Durgame patimendhasya skalat pada gater muhu svakripa yastidanena shanta shantva valambanam. He says, my path is very difficult, I'm slipping again and again, but the stick of the mercy of the Vaishnavas is holding me up. So it's like that. Our path is difficult, we're slipping, but the saintly people, the spiritualists, are holding us up. And then the Guru. Out of all of those spiritual people, someone will emerge as a more influential person in your life. And yes, somehow or other we have to defer some of our independence to them. And by their instructions, by their guidance, by their deep vision, they can help us to make decisions that we may not normally make by ourselves. And therefore the Guru also becomes a very, very important part of that journey. And then of course there is Shastra. The scriptures, because the scriptures are giving the guidance. The scriptures are giving the eternal principles. Nana Shastra Vicharane Kunipuno Saddharma Samstapako. If you want to know what is Saddharma, what is the eternal principle that you should live by, that is found in the scripture. And so then the scriptures are very, very powerful. Sanatana Goswami says, the Bhagavatam is my best friend. The Bhagavatam is my constant companion. The Bhagavatam walks with me through life. And I've instilled the Bhagavatam within my heart, because the scripture then becomes your companion. So it's clear, right? These three things are super important. And therefore what we're doing as devotees is we're trying to strengthen our connection with each one of these three things. Out of these three things, which one do you think is the most important? Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Oh my God, there we go. All of them are equally important. It almost seems like a trick question. Actually, it's said that Shastra is the most important, because the Guru and Sadhu draw their authority from the fact that they're following Shastra. But then you may turn around to me and say, but you can't understand Shastra if you don't have a Guru or a Sadhu. So that's also true. But in this context, we say that Shastra is the bedrock. And therefore, someone is only a guru or a sadhu if they're following Shastra. That's where they get their influence and authority from. And it's important, but having said that, it's important for us to have all of these three. Can you think of some personalities in the Bhagavatam who were seemingly following Shastra, but maybe because they didn't have Guru and Sadhu, they didn't understand the purpose of that Shastra properly? Daksha? Okay, yes, yeah. He was engaged in fruitive activities, he was doing karma kanda and other things, but perhaps he didn't understand the essence of it, he misunderstood Shiva.
Kamsa was also following.
Yeah, even demons follow Shastra, they're doing that. And maybe a more kind of clear example is the Yagyic Brahmanas, who were doing all the mantras, they were doing all the tantra, but when Krishna came, then the cowherd boys came, then they ignored them. So they missed the point. They were studying Shastra, but what is the conclusion of Shastra? Vedeshcha sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. Shastra is meant to take you to Krishna. So they were following Shastra, but when Krishna's call came, then they ignored it. That means you can follow Shastra, but if you don't have guidance, then you may miss the point. And can you think of someone who had a guru, but later on, because that guru was found not to be following Shastra, that guru had to be rejected? Bali Maharaj, right? He was following Sukracharya. So he had guru, but the moment he was not following Shastra, he was not following injunctions, then he said, now you're not my guru anymore, I will do against your instruction. That's why it's most important to have all three together, because they facilitate each other. Let me ask you a question. Do you find any problem in following Guru Sadhu Shastra on a practical level in your life? Is there any complexity which may arise in following Guru Sadhu Shastra? Because here Srila Prabhupada is saying, if you don't, then it's your destination is not going to be very positive. So is there any complexity in following? Yes?
Maybe they say the opposite things.
Yes. Sometimes Guru, Sadhu and Shastra seem to be saying opposite things. Sometimes Guru, Sadhu, Shastra seem to be saying things which are in conflict and are contradictory. And this can cause a lot of confusion, and this can also cause a lot of argument as well. Have you noticed? Of course, we don't argue in the Hare Krishna movement, not us. And that's exactly what I want to pick up on today, because here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that we have to follow Guru Sadhu Shastra. Why do we have to follow? Because for our own personal clarity, when we're making decisions and guiding others, we have to be clear. What does Guru Sadhu Shastra say? Otherwise, how can we make decisions and guide others? If we actually want to unify and be together, then the thing that's going to bring us together is Guru Sadhu Shastra. And if we want to powerfully have an effect on the world, then we have to be able to deliver Guru Sadhu Shastra to the world in a relevant and pure way. And ultimately, if we want to please Krishna, then we have to follow what Krishna is saying, which comes from Guru Sadhu Shastra. So to get Guru Sadhu Shastra right is very, very important. But sometimes it's not so easy to get Guru Sadhu Shastra right, because different things are seemingly said. And therefore, in our movement, we have different opinions on different things. Sometimes ISKCON is like an ocean of opinions on different things. Here are some of the differences of opinion. Philosophical differences. Did the jiva originally fall from the spiritual world? Yes or no? Even if I ask, let's do a quiz right now, let's do a survey, you might also feel a little bit uncomfortable. about claiming to be a certain position, because differences on Guru Sadhu Shastra create a little bit of tension between us. Shall we do it? Okay, let's do a survey. How many here believe that Guru Sadhu Shastra says we fell from the spiritual world? Put your hand up.
What is the alternative?
That we didn't, that you didn't fall, that we've been here since time immemorial. Okay, look around. Okay, so it seems like we're split down the middle there. You have to follow Guru Sadhu Shastra. But what does Guru Sadhu Shastra say? Okay, let's get even more controversial. We also don't just have differences on philosophy, we also have differences on our cultural understanding of Shastra. Should females or Vaishnavis be allowed to become Diksha Gurus? I'm not going to go into this, but just to get a survey, it's good for me to understand and don't worry, no one's going to judge you here. There's no judgment, we're all friends, and there's room for diversity. Put your hand up if you feel Vaishnavis should be Diksha Gurus. Okay. No, yeah, well, yours is according to Guru Sadhu Shastra. So according to your understanding of Guru Sadhu Shastra.
Can one stay neutral?
Can one stay neutral? Well, you have to make a decision. Okay, see there again, interesting. We're down the line, half and half. And then there could also be missionary differences. Should ISKCON be doing more grassroots preaching or more dynamic preaching? Have we adjusted too much, or should we just go back to the basics of book distribution? We could also have a survey on that. We won't do that. But can you see how in our movement we're basically split on many, many things because we have different understandings of Guru Sadhu Shastra? Is that a problem? Sometimes it can be a big problem, because we then create factions, and it creates splits, and it creates relationship difficulties, and we can also end up committing offenses to others because they have a different opinion. But what we have to understand is that Guru Sadhu Shastra is not simple, it's complex. Here are seemingly opposing statements. Srila Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam, the conclusion is that no one falls from the spiritual world or Vaikuntha planet, for it is the eternal abode. That's clear. There you go, in a Bhaktivedanta purport. But then what does Srila Prabhupada write in the letter? So when we fall down from the spiritual world, as part and parcel, we are in the spiritual, our position in the spiritual world. But when we fall down within this material world, we fall down in such a way. How do you deal with this? Is it a contradiction? We have to have some way of approaching this, some way of understanding this, because remember, this purport said you have to follow Guru Sadhu Shastra. So which one do you want to follow? It's complex. Here's another one. The Varnashram system is for the convenience sake in the material world. It has nothing to do with spiritual life. Always remember that Varnashram life is a good program for material life, and it helps one in spiritual life, but spiritual life is not dependent upon it. Clear? That seems quite clear. The Varnashram Dharma mentioned here is essential for human civilization. That's from a purport. Interesting. Seemingly opposing statements. Okay? Here's another one. Do not centralize anything. Look at the date here as well, yeah? 22nd December 1972 in a letter. And then 1 month later, For reasons of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, we may sometimes centralize. Just like the books and money for BBT are managed by Karandara in the Los Angeles. So now, this shows that there is complexity in Guru Sadhu Shastra. So therefore, when we approach Guru Sadhu Shastra, we have to maintain a very open mind. But the tendency can sometimes be within the conditioned soul to take one statement or to take one side and to then establish that as the only evidence which clearly establishes their position. And then we end up doing this. We have snowball fights by throwing different quotes around at each other. Here's another one. Because we say, no, it's there in Shastra. Here, and we get our Prabhupada Astras out. But Prabhupada said, but no, Prabhupada said this, boom. And then what happens is we have great conflict. Therefore, they say we both read the Shastra day and night. I read black, you read white. So Guru Sadhu Shastra is very, very complex. Why do you think, let me ask you, why do you think I just showed you some seemingly opposing statements in what Guru Sadhu Shastra say? Why do you think it's so complex? Why do you think there may be differences in statements? Yes?
Because we're all different, so like Srila Prabhupada knows to who he's speaking, and he has to, as this person who receives the instruction, that's right for him, and for another one, it's right to go another path because we're different, we're not the same.
Yes, so one clear point is that different statements are made to different people in different contexts. And therefore, there may seemingly be differences, but actually there's no difference because certain statements are given in certain contexts. And therefore, if you want to understand Shastra, then, or Guru or Sadhu's statement, you have to understand it in context, not stand alone. Because if you try to take it stand alone, you may misunderstand it. Therefore, it must always be understood in context. And because there are many, many different contexts, there may be many different statements. Good. Any other reason why you think Guru Sadhu Shastra is complex to understand?
Two things come to my mind. One is Desh Kala Patra, the principle, and also the same statement can have different meanings. So they can be perceived differently by different individuals. So there's also this element of subjectivity.
Okay, great. All right, actually, I've given you all the answers here. I didn't realize that. But yes. Yes. Okay, so here, maybe I should just go through it now. Now I'll put it up. So yes, here, there could be more than one right answer. Like for example, in the English language, we say, for example, the pen is mightier than the sword. Agreed? But then we may also say actions speak louder than words. So which one is right? Both. Both are right. You can have two right answers because both are right from their own perspective. Or you could say birds of a feather flock together, which is right. But then you could also say opposites attract, which is also right. So there may, when we read Guru Sadhu Shastra, even sometimes when we read two statements which seem to be contradictory, even in the English language we see that there may be many statements which are contradictory, but they're not contradictory because there can be more than one right answer. Shastra is complex because there's a hierarchy of principles. So in one context, for example, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Krishna says, Dharma sanstapanartha. I come to establish dharma. But later on, in the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says what? Sarva dharman parityaja. Give up dharma. Because there's a hierarchy of what Krishna is trying to do. And therefore, sometimes Jai Shishi Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Shishi Gauranitai ki Jai. So therefore, Shastra may sometimes say different things, but there's a hierarchy of where it's taking people, and so a statement must be understood according to where in the hierarchy of principles it stands. Some statements may have more weight because they are actually representing a higher principle in the hierarchy, and other statements, which are also statements of Guru Sadhu Shastra, may be on a lower scale in the hierarchy of principles, and therefore one has to know what is the hierarchy and where each statement stands so that they can know what to follow in what situation. We talked about different contexts. There are different intents behind statements. So sometimes when a speaker is speaking, a guru is speaking, or even Shastra is speaking, they may be speaking with a certain intention and a very specific intention. And that intention must be understood behind the statement. Otherwise, if you just take the statement without understanding the intention, then you may misunderstand the statement, and that often happens. And Shastra is also complex because it's revealed according to one's own purity of consciousness. And therefore, many people may read Shastra, but because we all have different levels of purity, we draw different things from it, because Shastra is also a person. It's like, like you're in a class. It's very interesting. You're in a class and you give a class, and then after the class, if you ask like 10 people what they think the message of the class was, it's very interesting. You can come out with like 10 different answers, because we are also absorbing knowledge according to our own consciousness. We're often hearing that which we want to hear, or we're often hearing and absorbing that which resonates with us. Because we may have biases within us. So can you begin to see why Guru Sadhu Shastra, although what it's meant to do is actually bring us together, Guru Sadhu Shastra is actually meant to bring us all on the same page, but sometimes Guru Sadhu Shastra is that which can cause the most division. It can cause the most argument. It can cause the most difference of opinion, because Guru Sadhu Shastra is complex. And therefore, we have to be very, very careful of this danger. Srila Prabhupada says, Ardha Kukuti Nyaya, which means the half-hen logic. I accept things which are very favorable to my understanding, and other things I reject. This is called Ardha Kukuti Nyaya. So we have to be very, very aware that we may have this bias. George Bernard Shaw, he says, when the moment we want to believe in something, we suddenly see all the arguments for it and become blind to all the arguments against it. And this is why we have a lot of difficulty. So how do we resolve these differences? In the beginning of Vedanta Sutra, different sutras are given, which is introducing us to the spiritual reality. Does anyone remember what the first sutra of Vedanta Sutra is? Yeah, you all know it. What's the first sutra of Vedanta? Prabhupada says it again and again. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. This means that now you have a human form of life. Inquire about the absolute truth. This is the first sutra of Vedanta. Does anyone know what the second sutra of Vedanta is? Yes, was that? Janmadyasya yataha. If the first sutra of Vedanta is now you have this human form of life, try to understand Brahman, Then the second sutra of Vedanta tells us who is that Brahman. That Brahman is Janmad Yasya Yataha, that person from whom everything comes. Does anyone know what the third sutra of Vedanta is? Yes, very good. Shastra Yonetvat. That if you want to now understand who is that personality from whom everything comes and who you should be inquiring about, then you have to go to Shastra, because Shastra is the Praman. And do you know what the fourth one is? Okay. Fourth one is the one that's important for today. Tatu Samanvayat. Vedanta Sutra says that, but when you go to Shastra, Shastra may be saying different things, there may be different perspectives, there may be different angles of vision which are given within Shastra, and therefore Tatu Samanvayat means one has to understand how to reconcile and how to bring Shastra together to understand it in a wholesome way. So Samanvaya means how to harmonize everything together. And this is a very, very important skill in our spiritual life, because if we don't understand how to harmonize Guru Sadhu Shastra, then not only will we be confused as to how to actually follow Guru Sadhu Shastra, but there will be a lot of differences of opinion, and there will be a lot of argumentation and fighting. So I'm just looking at the time, and maybe perhaps tomorrow we can look at how we actually do that, how to actually look at some of these different statements which seem to be contradictory, and how do we resolve them and how do we reconcile them. But maybe, and that whole thing is known as hermeneutics, or how you actually interpret Shastra, Guru Sadhu Shastra appropriately. But maybe that we can do tomorrow. But let me just see whether you may have any questions on anything that I've raised so far. Yes? You need a mic?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this lecture. I mean, I would just like to share that for me, sometimes this problem makes me suffer in spiritual life sometimes, because I'm also the one who has this Arda Kukuti. I sometimes like, no, that's the way it is, and then I don't see the other side. But I wanted to ask, what about faith? Because if you can say something about that. I spoke to it with my spiritual master, and he gave me an answer, but that's why I want to say, like, we have all these various verses that sometimes may be contradictory, but if a person has a faith in the verse, then in a sense it gets revealed, or it becomes truth, or then I don't know how to explain. Then this other maybe, which is contradictory, it doesn't apply in this person's life, if you understand what I mean. Maybe I said it in a little bit.
Yes, faith has to be there. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Shraddha vallabhate jnanam tatpara shamyatendriya, that a faithful person who controls their mind and senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge. So faith is, of course, required. We have to have faith that when Srila Prabhupada makes two statements, that each statement stands true. When we see two statements, see, our conception is that when we see two statements, we try to see that one is right and one is wrong. That's how our mind works. We have to be careful also when we speak with devotees, because, like, say for example, let's say we're having a debate about, or we're discussing a certain issue, and I say, no, Lokapavani, you're wrong because Prabhupada says this. Then just by saying that, what I'm basically doing is I'm saying I'm with Srila Prabhupada and you're not. You see, so now what we're doing is we're using Guru Sadhu Shastra to divide ourselves. When actually, we should say, it seems as though Srila Prabhupada, from what I've said, is saying this. Do you have something else you want to... So our tendency is to try to see this is right, this is wrong. But like I was giving you, even in the English language, there are two statements which seem to be contradictory, but we can't say one is wrong and one is right, because they both stand true. But now we have to understand in what context and in what way both of them are right. And in this circumstance, which one should we use to guide ourselves? You see, this is called hermeneutics. How you, sometimes people say, I don't interpret Shastra, I just follow Shastra. You see, again, if someone says that, like I say, no, look, I don't interpret it, I follow Shastra, then that means I'm basically saying my interpretation is the right one and I'm following. You see what I mean? So this is the sometimes the tendency of the conditioned soul to separate, to divide. Krishna actually says that in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that knowledge by which one sees difference, you know, is knowledge in the mode of passion, Krishna says actually. So I would say, rather than seeing either or, when coming to statements of Guru Sadhu Shastra, we should try to understand that yes, it's complex, and how can I understand each one in relation to this? Yeah.
And what I'm trying to explore more is, because my Guru Maharaj gave a lecture, like, well, then there are these people who always want to be right, and that's basically most of us, because we have this tendency to argue like this. But then he said, like, but actually we should, our duty is to search for the absolute truth. And then he said that the absolute truth is actually hidden in the heart of a pure devotee. So that's also like a thing to explore, because what does that mean? Because in a sense we saw how Srila Prabhupada says to this person this, and then to this person that. So, and all these instructions and all these perceptions of Krishna. But then I think like that's the way it should be, because there is so much variety. Like, and Krishna likes variety, and then maybe all these opinions, they're just the way they should be, because there's a relationship between this person and Krishna, and that's where it is relishable in this way. So
yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there can be a variety of ways of looking at things and a variety of ways of approaching things. And the main thing is we have to create harmony, unity in that diversity. That's the real challenge. And so, yes, it's not a problem that, you know, the acharyas look at, for example, the pastime of Krishna sucking the life out of Putana, and when he comes in front of Putana, he closes his eyes, and then they question, why did he close his eyes? And then there are many opinions on that. And it's not like, no, it's definitely Krishna did it because of this, and no, it's because he did because of this. No, we are nourished by all of those perspectives, and we develop our love for Krishna by seeing beauty in all of those explanations. And so that's the challenge, you know. And yes, I think also you make a good point that understanding Guru Sadhu Shastra is also not just an intellectual thing, like, okay, here we are, now we're going to go through this process, we're going to do hermeneutics, and then we're going to figure out this is actually... no, after doing the whole process, we may still have different understandings, different realizations, but at least we can respect each other. At least we can see why you have a different understanding and how your understanding can nourish me, even if my understanding is different. That will be progressive Vaishnava society. Yes.
Махарадж, спасибо за лекцию.
Thank you for your lecture, Maharaj.
Что есть 400 тысяч форм жизни человеческой.
I want to say that there is 400,000 forms of human form of life,
Из них только 10 тысяч цивилизованных.
and 10,000 of these forms are civilized.
И это получается логично.
This sounds logically.
Если душа перебирается, допустим, в аборигена, человеческая форма аборигена,
If the soul achieve the body of some low form,
и потом этот абориген съедает своего товарища,
and in this low form of human being, there can be eating of bodies of the others.
Cannibals.
Yeah, cannibals. Yeah.
да, тогда он уже выше не поднимется, снова в животное. Получается, что не будет эволюции.
And let us imagine that one of such person can do this cannibalism, and he cannot elevate anymore.
Тогда получается 300 тысяч, они все как, ну как вроде бы человек, и он как животное, они идут по эволюции. А 9 тысяч уже, 10 уже цивилизованные.
Вопрос?
Ну это логично, ну такое есть в шахтах, мне сказал президент.
He asked, is he think right that those 390,000 forms of life are like the animal forms of life, that if they do something, some sin,
Then they don't get a reaction.
yeah, then they don't get a reaction.
Если это есть, то где оно в шахтах? Если это
He heard from one person, devotee, and he want to know, is there something said about this in Shastra?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just answer short, just because I try to stay on the subject, but basically your question is that there are 400,000 species of human life. Some of them are civilized, some are uncivilized, and those who are uncivilized sometimes do activities which seem, outside of Guru Sadhu Shastra. For example, being a cannibal. So I don't think we're going to have any arguments about whether that is contained. So your question is, do they get reactions for being in that situation even though they're part of a lower human species? Of course, karma is complex, because karma is not just a mechanical thing. You do A and you get B. Karma is also looking at the situation that you're in. Karma is also looking at the kind of psychophysical apparatus that you're using in order to make decisions. Karma is looking at the contextual factors around how you're kind of navigating this world. And therefore it's hard to say one way or the other, because karma is very, very complex. But basically we can see that why do you get karma? Karma comes because we're basically trying to correct someone's mentality. And so basically for someone who's doing something outside of Guru Sadhu Shastra, of course there will always be some kind of karmic correction for that, because the ultimate purpose of karma is to bring that person back onto the path which is progressive for their life. But how exactly that happens and what exact reaction they get in order to correct themselves, that is very complex, so that we can't say. But yes, if we bear in mind that karma is coming, don't see karma as a punishment. see karma as education to bring people back to a more progressive path in life, then we'll understand that anyone doing anything which is not according to Guru Sadhu Shastra will get karma, because there needs to be some reorientation of their consciousness to a progressive path. It's okay. Yes.
Maharaj, I had a brief comment and a question. About 2 years ago, I had asked something along the lines of this difference in opinion among devotees to His Holiness Kadamba Kanna Maharaj. And he had given a very simple yet profound answer. And he said, there is the principle and there are details. And the principle doesn't change, but then the details change, and that's where we get caught up. And the principle actually unifies all of us. So as to speak, there may be an apparent difference of opinion, but if you really go deep down to what the principle is, keeping aside the details, then there may not be a difference of opinion, so to speak. So I thought that was, at least for me, it helped me a lot in life, something like this. And my question relates to that when we have these differing views of the Shastra, the Guru, and amidst the association of devotees, and why it's challenging is it's because out of our comfort zone. And you mention it very often that we always like to be in our comfort zone. But at the same time, we also hear that we should associate with the like-minded. So, and then I'm thinking that there are a few perceptions and which I know I do not agree with, and I will probably mostly never agree with, because they are against my principles or how I see Krishna consciousness. Although I may be respecting them. And then when I shy away from being too much with individuals who have these opinions, is it any sort of escapism on my part?
Yes. Okay, so just on your first point, yes, this is a very nice point, that we often differ on details more than principles, and that's definitely the case, you know, that principles must be preserved and details need to be adjusted, and how much we adjust, how we adjust, that's generally what we have a conflict over. But also one of the major conflicts we have is what is a principle and what is a detail. So that's where, you know, Guru Sadhu Shastra, we have a lot of differences opinion on that, because some people say certain things can't be changed, you know, and certain people say no, this is a detail, it can be changed. And the debate is not over how we change the details, the debate over is this a detail or is this a principle. So that's the complexity. And yes, what about when we are in a community where we have, where we are around people who have differences of opinion with us about certain things, and then we decide that we would prefer to keep a distance from them because our approach and our mood is different. Is there a problem in that? Is that bad? Or is it natural that we always gravitate towards Sajatiya association? It's not necessarily bad, but here are a few things I would say. The first thing is that we should try to engage with people we have different opinions with. That's very good for us, actually. To actually hear someone else's opinion, to be challenged, to try to, for one moment, put aside your opinion and just try to deeply understand where they're coming from. They say, listen not to reply, but listen just to understand. A lot of development in our understanding of Guru Sadhu Shastra can come if for some moments we can just dialogue with people. Otherwise, what happens is we can very easily put ourselves in an echo chamber, and we just surround ourselves with people who have the same understanding and opinions as us. Now, while that is good, because naturally Rupa Goswami says Sajatiya association, but there's also something to be said for engaging in conversations and in dialogue with people who have, just to be illumined by a different perspective, because sometimes it can nourish our understanding in a different way. And then the other thing is, we just have to make sure that when we create distance, we're not also creating a negativity or a judgmental or a kind of condescending attitude towards others as we move away from them. Looking down upon others because we feel they've got it wrong. That kind of mentality, if it multiplies within a Vaishnava society, can become very, very divisive. So we have to somehow be able to disagree, but in a respectful way. So every disagreement doesn't have to be an argument. And when we are able to do that without harboring bad feeling, then, you know, then it's not harmful in that way. Yes.
So I was observing this in myself also very much, especially when I'm discussing with my sisters or my mother, that I just like have an opinion and then I will give some arguments that would stand for this opinion. And if you're like really sure that it's a principle that we, for example, have to associate with devotees and go to Guru Sadhu Shastra, and the other person is like,
you're convinced that they're doing something which is against.
Yeah. And then I'm actually in putting this out, that this is a principle, and like confronting them with this, I'm also going against the principle that we should just accept the others and that there are different opinions. So what to do in that situations? Especially when they're like senior to us, then we shouldn't say it.
So there is something you strongly, after hearing everything, you strongly believe is in a certain perspective, and there's another person who has a different perspective. Then you're saying, on one hand, should you just not say anything, but then you're not honoring the perspective. But if you do say something, then it's like you're opposing that person and you're creating. So what should you do? Is that your question? Did I get it right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's not that we have to necessarily be the one to change everyone's opinion. We can discuss, we can share our heart, we can, if we're in a position of authority and we have a service to do that, we can put the arguments forward. But after all is said and done, we have to recognize that everyone is an individual and everyone has their realizations, and maybe I also have my own human frailties as well. And therefore there's a certain point when, even if you have a difference of opinion with someone, even if you're convinced that what they're doing is against Guru Sadhu Shastra, that you may, because you have no influence over that, and because it's not your service, and because ultimately, you know, you can't make any change to that situation, that you just let it be. That's what you have to do sometimes, right? Because we can't change the world, like kicking and screaming the world into a new way of understanding, you know, it's like... So we have to understand that, yes, we compassionately try to share our opinions, we hear them after we've had respectful dialogue. If the person still holds to their position, then we have to respect them and move on. If we don't have any influence over that, what else can you do? Yeah. Any final questions or comments? Okay.
From this situation that there are many point of views and many contradictory statements. For me, it's sometimes difficult to find myself in a philosophical field which I feel comfortable, because what happens to me is that I hear this and this person so speaking about this point of view from this angle, giving me this arguments, then the other person from that argument, and I try to understand them, but for me there's always a risk that I don't get it at all afterwards if I get to too many point of views. And so afterwards I'm often more confused.
Yeah. So what should you do? Yeah, it's not that I'm not suggesting that what we now do is take every single complex issue in ISKCON and then hear all the different opinions, and I mean, you know, that could take you a few lifetimes to figure it all out, you know. So we don't need to do that. If there are certain things which are not your service, which don't really affect your life that much, and which don't really have a bearing on your spiritual journey, then you can save time to chant Hare Krishna, and that might be better. That will be better, I think. So yes, certain things you just don't need to go there. Why? We don't. That's another thing with many of these things, is we feel that we need to have a resolution on everything. No, there are some things which just let the debates go on. And it doesn't really, if it's not my service and it doesn't affect my path, why would I, if it's going to be too draining for me? But there may come to a point when there is something which is relevant to you, in which you have to make a decision, in which it does have a bearing on your life. Or maybe you're in a position of authority. Maybe tomorrow you're, you know, responsible for a community, and then you have to make a call on one of these things. Then, because it's your service and because it has a bearing on your journey, then you have a responsibility to do it. So, yeah, just choose what is important for you to have clarity on, and then explore that, and the rest, leave it to the rest. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. In connection to that and the before you also mentioned that it's good to associate with persons who have
like-minded.
No, who
different opinions.
Different opinions, so that you broaden your horizon, and that you don't hear your own echo in the persons you choose to associate. And for me, I have experienced that some countries have like different mood in their temples, and I experienced that from some country I have really difficulties to associate with their mood.
I resonate. Yeah, that's natural. You know, every ISKCON community, every ISKCON temple naturally will have its own flavor. Zurich also has a nice flavor, very nice flavor. I think we have to learn to take the good. In every community there are beautiful things. You know, in every community there is devotion which is expressed in a certain way. And I think we have to be able to see that. What to speak of our ISKCON communities, even Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when I go into a church, I see that here is my same God being worshipped, but with a different ritual, in a different way. So if Bhaktivinoda Thakur could go to a church and appreciate, like, here is what's going on, and we can't go to another ISKCON temple, like, oh, can't resonate with this, you know, it's like, it's not my mood. I think we may be becoming a little bit exclusive. So we can take something good, it's nice, everyone, Krishna consciousness is full of individuality. That's beautiful. It's an individual movement. And look at all the acharyas, they were so different in terms of their personality, in one sense you could say, you know. But they understood each other's heart. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, my spiritual master gave me 3 instructions. Number 1, never make any disciples. Number 2, don't create many temples. Number 3, never go to Calcutta. He said, I followed my spiritual master perfectly. Really? He said, yes, because when my spiritual master told me don't make many disciples, I followed him, because all of these people I initiated, I see them as my guru. My spiritual master told me don't create many temples. I didn't create any temples, I didn't create institutions, I created embassies of the spiritual world. And I never went to Calcutta, because whenever I went to that geographical location, I always surrounded myself with devotees. And therefore, when you're surrounded by devotees, you're living in Vaikuntha. So I followed my spiritual master perfectly. It's interesting. He had externally, they lived very different lives, but internally in heart, they were completely aligned. So we have to learn to see the heart of the Vaishnavas. Even when externally they seem to be doing it in a very different way to me. Let us try to see the heart. Because yes, Lokapavani mentioned that Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gatasa pantha. The ultimate dharma, sad dharma, is hidden within the hearts of the devotees. So let us try to see the heart. Okay, I see more hands and then I see the clock. Okay, maybe we'll take these two and then these 2 comments or questions. And
Maharaj, would you maybe like to share one of your personal...
You hear me?
Yes.
Maharaj, would you like to share one of your personal experiences where you maybe first judge someone because they don't follow properly or they don't behave in a way you would like them to behave? And then actually the situation turned out differently and you understood the devotees and you stopped judging.
That's a good question. I think in preaching, when I kind of joined the Krishna consciousness movement, I think I had a very specific idea of how we should be communicating to the world. And when I saw different people presenting Krishna consciousness in different ways, then I was kind of like, I think I was very judgmental of them, like, no, this is not the way it should be done. It should be done in this way. We have to be chaste. We have to be, you know, very straightforward. We have to tell them as it is. And then what happened in my life is I started interfacing with more and more people out there in the world. I began to understand people in the world, what they're going through, what's going through their mind, what challenges they face. And then I began to appreciate how individuals who were presenting Krishna consciousness in different ways, they were expertly learning the art of how to meet people where they are. If you want to take someone on a journey, first you have to meet people where they are. And all of those people who I judged to be deviant or watering things down or diluting, later on I began to appreciate that actually it's a great act of compassion. Now, even in today's day and age, still people may hold different opinions on this, and it's not for me to say we should do it this way or that way. But in my own personal journey, I feel that I went through that transition, and over time became more understanding of people who presented Krishna consciousness in a certain way, and why they were doing that, and how that was completely in line with Guru Sadhu Shastra. Even though previously I felt as though what they were doing was a compromise. So that's, I guess, one example. So it's okay. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for interesting class and discussion. I would like to share what has an analogy that helps me a lot. This one, if we see Shastras or spiritual knowledge as a tree, and with the trunk and the branches and the leaves. So if we just take one verse or one opinion, we get stuck in that. And if we are not very, very rooted in the trunk and in the roots, we become fanatic. So if I feel that I get stuck in an opinion or something like that, or that I think my mood is better than somebody else's mood, I try to go back to the trunk, which is always should be servitude, humility. So I try to remind myself about that, because I think we all can agree on that principle, that our position is as servants. So if we can really realize that, and I'm talking to myself now, then we have no more problems nowhere. No psychological problems, no problems with relationships. So I think it's really important. And also, as you mentioned, Maharaj, to continue to learn, to identify oneself as an eternal learner. Because even Krishna says that he doesn't understand himself fully. So how can we think that our opinion would be like the ultimate opinion? So I try to remind myself of that, and I feel it's easier to live in a spiritual society, and also with our dealings outside. So I wanted to share that.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, go back to the root. Like Srila Prabhupada used to say that everyone should come together and dance in kirtan. And it's almost like I've had that experience before of like being in a kirtan with someone you had an extremely different opinion with, and there we are, like, you know, doing a spin together, and it's like, it's quite nice actually in that moment. You think like, yeah, maybe it's not so important, you know, here we are chanting Hare Krishna. So yeah, we have to go back to the root. We have to just be together and chant and try to love Krishna together. And yes, I like your other point of how we're constantly learning. There's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Majjita madgata prana bodhayanta parashparam kathayantascha mam nityam dusyanti cha ramanti cha. So this is a very interesting verse, because what Krishna says is that the self-realized souls are conversing with each other. But the way Srila Prabhupada translates bodhayanta parashparam is he says they're constantly enlightening one another. It's a very beautiful terminology, to be constantly enlightening one another, which means that enlightenment is not a destination. Enlightenment is a direction. Because we think of enlightenment as, here I am, I'm enlightened. But Krishna says, bodhayanta parashparam, they're constantly enlightening one another, they're constantly enlivening and illuminating and uplifting and giving each other higher and higher understandings, because the ultimate spiritual reality is unlimited. So yes, there's always more to learn, there's always more to grasp, and there's always more ways in which to be enlightened. So anyway, this was a little different. I hope it's okay. I thought it's an important topic to talk about, because it goes on, you know, the snowball fights. And beyond all of that, we have to try how to understand how to be united beyond all of that, because Srila Prabhupada ultimately did want a united Krishna consciousness. He said, that will be the way in which you show your love for me, by being together, even when sometimes there is difference. And we have to learn how to navigate that difference and see it in a devotional way. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Svayam Bhagavan Keshava ki jai.
Thank you so much. This discussion about practicing empathy is very nice. What to do with this history of the Guru Shastra inside. Realize this blessing because it's very clear that to acknowledge the pain of authority. Christianity is supreme authority. Another authority is representative of Krishna. But I cannot see the complexity because the Sutra, Shastra and Past. If you want to know about Brahman, go for Shastra. And Jiva Goswami had that statement in particular. Shada, faith, yes, and the Shastra. We can infer that the Shastra is the main authority, is the source of knowledge, and the Guru and Shastra depend on Sadhu. Yeah, exactly. Guru and Sadhu depend on yes. Not existed Acharya, Sadhu, or Guru without Shastra. The focus. But we have this problem, specifically from Middle Age, that's hermeneutic. We need the philosophical we need the interpretation. Yes, we need to interpret the Shastras.
So how, in one sense, that's the point I was making, that in one sense Shastra is the Praman.
The great hermeneutics, unless I come from Middle Age to interpret the Plato and Aristotle. But to have the main point is how you do it. For us, this is very, very solid. Who is our method of interpretation? For the church. And a delicate point is like you speak about the female group. These are questions that happens nowadays in society, like corruption, etc. And the problem is, Srimad Bhagavatam speaks that Brahma is absolute, not changing, no move. But in the particularly in the nature reality, everything is changing. Te dvanda moha, illusion, moha mukta. So what we can change, make principles about when things ever changes. Like 100 years ago, the couple keeping very nice marriage. But today it's very difficult, yes. And the ethos move like this because the materiality is relative. It's very difficult to state about the but the Brahman is absolute. But who perceives the Brahman? Only with senses control. Yes, the demons, yes, this very high special. We have the perfect authorities. Krishna explained Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explained the 11th canto to Uddhava. Yes, and Shukadeva Goswami, the Bhagavatam unit, men, the great authorities, great brains to understand Brahman, that speak about the material principles. Nowadays it's very difficult, but it is a mission for us, followers of this. We have this big problem and only finals about it. Wasted your time. It's good, nice. When will you discuss this stuff?
how do I discuss these topics?
I understand that this is a prevalent problem, but who do discuss these topics? Because in our main frame epistemology, devolution says we have 4 kinds of defeats, and with the 4 kinds of defeats, with a crazy mind, every society will discuss this. The topics are so difficult.
That's why we have to try to create some kind of dominical council.
Yes, good. For example, in academy, we have more old chair that is philosophy. Yeah. In who discuss philosophy? Not is the turban, not is the crown. This is a very important.
Yeah, that's right.
Topic for we understand. And I think if you understand parampara and the main important point of parampara, that is a child. I see the knowledge, the epistemology in Bhagavad in our Russian society is too much more perfect than the but yeah, discuss is like sometimes it's nice.
Yeah. Today is more about hermeneutics. Epistemology is clear. Like Jiva Goswami makes clear in Tattva Sandarbha what is the epistemology of the Vaishnavas. Yeah, like he's saying Shastra is Praman, he's establishing Bhagavatam. So that's very clear. Shabda Brahman, Bhagavatam. But then it's just, there is a complex, because even if we say it's clear, we interpret Shastra through Parampara, right? Even if you say that, the problem is who's interpreting Parampara?
Is the question.
There is always an element of human, because Shastra is living, so it's always.
But we have the perfect interpretation about the Parampara text Prabhupada. For the ISKCON, Prabhupada is the ground,
But even here, even if you say Prabhupada's statements, here I was showing you, Prabhupada seemingly said different things.
Yes.
So then that needs resolution. So that needs resolution.
I agree.
So then we have to do something
because this I think that the people to read and understand Prabhupada are not the time, because the instructions Prabhupada is very high.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Whoever does it, but there has to be some discussion on that, because they're seemingly, we have to do some reconciliation.
One point that
sorry, just one second, because
we need to go.
I'm wondering if you have a phone call at 9:30.
Let me see if he was messaging me. Let's see if he's changed his mind. Yeah, I promise. 9:30.
To go 10:30.
10:30. Should I come after that?
I think it would be better.
We'll take breakfast. Everyone's still now.
No, we have the meeting started at 9.
Oh, you've already started?
That was the plan. But
I can come for 15 minutes if you want.
Can you come now? You want to finish?
Yes. Come, shall we speak later?
Okay, because I'm not coming back to the retreat.
Oh, you're not coming back.
Sure.
You're still here today? That is 7722 501 841. Okay, so I'll message you then.
Maybe you can as the huge person.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. So, yeah, Jamie.
Jamie. You're staying in Zurich?
Temporarily, yeah. We're going to go to the retreat actually next week.
We should spend some time with you.
Yeah. I had a question. But we can talk later times.
Yeah, I think I just have to go to my meeting. Let's catch up.
Yeah, sure.
Jamie,
We're breaking fast. Mark,
I better go for a meeting.